It is quite literally the UPSC U-turn. In a stunning reversal, the Modi government has withdrawn its decision on lateral entry, an advertisement placed just days ago, couple of days ago, by the UPSC. I'm Barkha Dutt, you're with the Mojo Story. Politics has heated up after the Modi government's decision to take back an order that its party leaders and its ministers were defending just up until yesterday. Now, basically, what happened was not just criticism from the opposition, but also from within the alliance. The BJP's allies, led by Chirag Paswan, objected strenuously to the decision or the proposal by the UPSC to allow lateral entrance. Now, lateral entries to government service are not new. This has, of course, happened before, and the BJP is pointing out that notwithstanding Rahul Gandhi's opposition to this plan, in fact, he called it a way to diminish reservations for the OBC, Dalit, and tribal communities. The Congress itself has encouraged lateral entrance. In fact, today, a BJP minister pointed out that Manmohan Singh himself started his career in public life as a lateral entrant. Nevertheless, this has been a step back for the Modi government. In a letter written by Jitendra Singh to the UPSC chairman, what is made clear is that this was very much on the directives of the Prime Minister. The letter further reveals that lateral entry could make a return, but this time only after it is aligned, quote unquote, with the principles of equity and social justice, and very specifically elaborates how reservation will be protected alongside. There's a lot to discuss, not just on lateral entry per se, but also on the politics of what has just happened. Let me introduce our guests on the program today. Joining us is Sandeep Ghosh. I should say not that Sandeep Ghosh that we've been seeing hitting the headlines in Bengal, but Sandeep Ghosh, a political analyst, a supporter of the Prime Minister. Does he agree with what the Prime Minister has done right now to take back this decision by the UPSC chairman? We'll find out in a moment. Gurcharan Das, author and commentator, is with us. Welcome, Gurcharan. Dheeraj Nair, someone who has served in the Niti Aayog. Some might have called him a lateral entrant, now a chief economist with Vedanta, joins us as well. And Sanjay Jha, who's of course a political analyst and a supporter of the Congress party, is with us as well. Welcome, everybody. Let me actually get first comments from you, Sanjay. You might like to claim that this is listening to Rahul Gandhi, but maybe the BJP was just listening to its allies. Nevertheless, how do you see this moment? Sanjay.
Barkha, good evening. I see this as another example of poor governance. Coming from the Prime Minister himself, one assumes that in this centralized administrative control that he has, everything is eventually got his go-ahead. Mr. Modi's got another example of egg on his face, really. And this follows many legislative disasters, including the Farm Bill and the Land Acquisition Act. But the latest one has to be a calamitous one for the BJP, even in terms of not just poor, legislative authoritarianism, but also in showing that the BJP is appearing to be very much blind completely at the moment, like a deer hit by the headlights after the 2024 underperformance in the Lok Sabha elections. It's pretty apparent to anyone that Rahul Gandhi and everybody raised a very pertinent point, which is that principally, if you're having lateral entrance, you got to be consistent with what the constitutional provisions are in terms of reservations. I don't think anybody says that at a time, if a government feels that it needs certain specialists or it requires talent from outside of the regular bureaucracy, feel free enough to get it, which was, by the way, initiated even during Dr. Manmohan Singh's government. But it has to be consistent with the policy of ensuring that people get opportunities who come from different stratas of society.
Right.
And here is the point, Barkha, before the others come in. The Constitution of India is actually a welfare state-driven constitution. In fact, one of the places where the Constitution encourages state intervention is in terms of reservations, both in employment as well as in education. And if you look at the one simple example of the Bihar caste survey, it tells you that around 85% of India is between the OBCs, the scheduled caste, and the scheduled tribes. And herein lies the irony that for a government that talks about a lot of lectures on inclusive growth, etc., they are continuing to brazenly isolate large sections of India's disempowered and disadvantaged
Okay,
from
can I ask you something
unfathomable.
before? Can I ask you something briefly? We have Arjun Meghwal saying that, look, Manmohan Singh was a lateral entrant. Nandan Nilekani, who actually contested on a Congress ticket, is the architect of the Aadhaar program, then in a way embraced by the BJP as well, was a lateral entrant. In his
That's right.
letter, Minister Jatinder Singh to the UPSC chairman makes a reference to what he calls the super bureaucracy that was the National Advisory Council, which was a kind of parallel government, some said, run by Sonia Gandhi. So
Mhm.
lateral entrants are not new to the Congress culture. It's just that times have changed. Your politics or the politics of the party you support have changed. How do you respond to that?
Barkha, that's such a poor argument coming from the right wing ecosystem. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
A Dr.
Yeah.
Manmohan Singh and Nilden Nenekani, these are one swallow doesn't a summer make. Here we are talking about several
Dr. Manmohan
posts.
Singh was a two-time prime minister of the UPA.
No, no,
He
no, no.
wasn't
But
just a
we are
marginal,
talking.
he wasn't just a marginal Congress leader, and he came into public life as a lateral entrant. He didn't sit for a UPSC exam.
Yeah,
And he
but
became
that's
the prime
very
minister of the country for two consecutive terms.
well, frankly, between you and me, and I'm not saying this in a lighter vein, one of the 45 that they wanted to recruit could have been a better prime minister than Mr. Modi is. But that is not the point.
Oh,
There's a
I
larger
get that.
point that I wish to
Hmm.
make. That one
Hmm.
one Dr. Manmohan Singh or one some other bureaucrat who came in like Nandan Nilekani, they are not
Yeah.
some kind of an institutional, shall we say, amendment happening to recruitment. What is the issue here? The issue here is this: that bottom line, this is an attempt to recruit 45 people across 24 central ministries. There is a deficit of talent, according to Mr. Modi's government, in the bureaucracy. I'm sure that the IAS and the IPS should be worried about how Mr. Modi sees the current crop of UPSC talent, where we have seen another scam happening, by the way. So here is the larger point. Under the UPA, UPA initiated it. I don't think anybody's backing out of that, Barkha. But look at the BJP's counter argument. It's so absolutely fragile. They're quoting two examples. They're not talking about an institutional, shall we say, correction being made, which doesn't respect constitutional
Okay.
provisions of reservation. And what is wrong with
Okay.
that? The Constitution
Okay.
tells the state kindly ensure parity in terms of social justice. And that's the way it should be.
Okay, I want to just refer once to this letter that has now made its way into the public domain before coming to Sandeep Ghosh. Please, if we can show the letter. There are two couple of things that actually really leap out. One is the reference to the National Advisory Council, and the other is that this is very much Modi's directive, and it kind of seems to indicate, Sandeep, that lateral entry could be back just with a very specified sort of framework to make it clear that it doesn't actually disturb reservation. Now, my question to you is, this could have been done anyway in the public communication. The public communication, instead of taking this back, could have simply said that this applies only to jobs available in the general quota, or something. There could have been an addendum. The taking back of it will seem to the government's critics to be panicky, will seem to be a political victory that Rahul Gandhi has scored. How do you see what's happened?
Certainly, Barkha, optics-wise, it is a disaster, and there'll be too many, this kind of missteps which the government is doing too soon, within about 2 months of its coming to power. So these steps seem to be not well thought through, in that way. Uh, and I think I'll come to that in a bit. This, to my mind, more than this raises some much larger question about how the government is functioning, or what this Modi 3.0 is all about, as from whatever we have seen so far. But when you look at this particular, I totally agree with you. There could have been clarification, there could have been amendments to clarify on the situation, and there could have been also explanations very clearly given. Now, when you're talking of 45 recruits, out of, I think there are about 1,000 UPSC candidates recruited each year, 1,000 or more. So you're not even talking about 5%. If 5% are also not being taken through this quota system, I don't think you're vitiating the principles at all. So many such explanations could have been given. Because the other bit is, when you're recruiting, why I different from Sanjay, why I don't think this Manmohan Singh and Montek Singh Ahluwalia or Nandan Nilekani, these are to some extent false equivalences, because very clearly, these direct recruits are merit-based. Now, when you're recruiting somebody on a merit base, you cannot generally say, okay, merit based, but within that, I'm going to look for caste, creed, other denominations. So, that is very self-contradictory, the whole process. So, I don't agree on that at all. Now, whether this whole idea of direct recruits is a good idea or not, that can be a separate debate. I personally have great reservations. Mr. Das comes from the corporate world, so does Dheeraj and Sanjay too. We know even in the corporate world, it is not easy to get lateral entrance into an embedded system. So you find even in organizations like Tata's, when they try to get in direct recruits at the top, it's a DNA which throws people out. So you could be setting people up for failure when you're bringing them in. So it requires a lot more thinking than just one move to get. So there are host of problems, but I'll just take a minute more, Barkha. But the bigger issue about all these so-called U-turns, which is happening, it is showing an unsure government. And contrary to just the opposition's thing, I think the bigger issue is coming. The government is being weighed down by differences within its own ranks, and whether it's the allies. But I would say it's not just the allies, because a lot of decisions, like say the indexation, etc., met with a lot of resistance or dissatisfaction even within BJP's own ranks, states like Maharashtra. And I don't think the government is really getting its act together or landing on its feet as yet.
Now, you raised this point about how this U-turn raises questions about how Modi 3.0 is functioning. I think the spillover effect from the election campaign, Constitution badal denge, they're out to get your reservations, something that the opposition was able to use very effectively, especially when it came to the Dalit vote, is still making its presence felt. For example, we have Charanjit Singh writing, first a mistake and then acknowledgement of the mistake, but the message that the government is anti-reservation is gathering ground. Now, I think this is what has panicked perhaps the government, because it panicked when they didn't pay enough attention to it in the 2024 campaign, it cost them. Now, this statement came from Chirag Paswan. This is before the U-turn. I want you to listen in, and then I'll come to Gurcharan and Dheeraj. Take a look.
मैं और मेरी पार्टी कतई सहमत नहीं है। आज जिस तरीके से कुछ पदों के नियुक्तियों के लिए डायरेक्ट बहाली के लिए सीधा वहां से डिमांड्स मांगी गई है, जिसमें आरक्षण का ध्यान नहीं रखा गया है, इस बात के मेरी पार्टी भी पूरी तरीके से खिलाफ है। सरकार का अंग होने के नाते सरकार के उचित प्लेटफॉर्म पे इस कंसर्न को मेरी पार्टी की तरफ से हम लोगों ने भी दर्ज कराया है। आने वाले दिनों में भी इसके ऊपर मजबूत आवाज हम लोगों की तरफ से उठाई जाएगी। कोई भी सरकारी पद की नियुक्ति अगर निकलती है तो उसमें आरक्षण के प्रावधानों का ध्यान रखा जाना जरूरी है। अनुसूचित जाति, जनजाति, पिछड़ा वर्ग का जो आरक्षण जिस तरीके से सरकारी नौकरियों में जिस तरीके से चलता आ रहा है, हर नियुक्ति में इसका ध्यान रखा जाए, ये अनिवार्य है। और अगर ऐसा नहीं रखा जाता है, जो कि आज हम लोग को भी देखने को मिला है, इसके लिए सरकार उचित कार्रवाई जरूर करेगी।
So Gurcharan, let me just mute Gurcharan while I ask my question. Gurcharan, we have the first here visible illustration of a coalition government. It hadn't looked or felt like that up until now. But when you see Chirag Paswan come out and speak like this, you are reminded of the fact that the BJP does not have a majority of its own. So there are two dimensions to this conversation. One is the political, and the other is the scheme itself, right? And I'm not saying the scheme is dead and buried, but it seems that it will come back with caveats. It will come back with sort of exemptions on reservation, and making it clear that only those jobs in the general quota are open for lateral entry. Gurcharan Das, please go ahead.
The mistake here
Yeah.
as is the usual mistake that this government makes. You need to sell your ideas. You needed to sell to the farmers the farm laws, and you need to sell this idea. But to say, and it's not a difficult sell. It's like telling people that, look, if you're what Sanjay Jha calls social justice, if you were forming the Indian cricket team on the basis of social justice, you'd need to take, everybody to be included in the 11 based on caste reservations. Now, that's a ridiculous thought. And so I feel this is a real shame because this we have lost another chance for upgrading the quality of decision making in areas which require high skill and experience. And all modern governments do this kind of thing. And so it's easy to blame politics, easy to blame democracy for this sort of thing. But also we have to recognize that our we have that the economics has also failed us. That over the last 30 years we have grown at 6%, which is damn good for a democracy. But we haven't created the jobs that should have come with it. We have not created an industrial revolution. And if we can create an industrial, and now we can create it, if we create that industrial revolution, we can't just depend on services to be the driving engine.
So
We will
you
be
say
in a problem. We'll
So,
be in a
sorry,
mess.
you say the government should have sold this better. That's exactly what they failed to do with the
Yes.
farm laws, which they too had to take back. And we'll come back to what the government could have said or should have said before it actually rolled out the advertisements. Dheeraj, your responses, do you think it's a real shame? Do you think it's inevitable given the politics? What does it even mean? Because I mean, experts are not going to stop coming into government, right? You have plenty of them in government already. What does it actually mean to take back these advertisements?
So, I mean, just a couple of specifics, almost micro points. One, that this has been done before in the previous term of the government. Nine lateral hires were made at the joint secretary level. In the Niti Aayog, where I have worked, several lateral hires have been made and continue to be made at various levels. There is an entire cadre of young professionals now which works in different ministries who started by Niti Aayog. They're also external people. So it's not new. So I suspect the government went ahead with this because they've already done it before. It's just that they didn't realize that there are now allies on their side and they're not in a majority. I doubt if this would have been rolled back if Rahul Gandhi had just said it, because it's been done before. It's not the first time this government is doing lateral recruitments, and people have served. That's the first point. The second point is that this is not lateral entry on a permanent basis. These are all contract jobs. They're 3 to 5 years, and then you go back to where you came from, or to another walk of life. So this is not like UPSC recruitment for the IAS, IPS, IRS, and so on, where you're recruited at the age of whatever, in your 20s, and then you serve till you retire. These are not in the same kind of jobs. These are very much temporary jobs. So I mean, if you're going to take this argument forward, the government will not hire joint secretaries or directors or deputy secretaries. They'll just hire experts as consultants in some other way because they need the expertise, right? So I think bringing them into the formal system, the idea is that they can be part of the decision making. Otherwise, you're purely advisory from the outside. But if you have a position, then you take, you play a role in the movement of the file. As this is not at all something which has not been done before. This is not a permanent government job. This is not getting in people. This is not parity with.
Are you surprised, Dheeraj, that it was rolled back, or do you think the government just thought that because they've done it before, got away with it, or whatever? It didn't receive any negative response last time. They probably thought the same this time. Coming to you in a second, Gurcharan. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I think the government just went ahead because they probably didn't realize that this is a different polity now, post 2024.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was not something they thought they needed to sell because they've done it before. And as they've rightly said, the Congress has also done it. Everybody has done it before. It's not something new. So I think, yes, what you said earlier, the politics of the fact that this government has been pinned down on reservations through the election campaign. And I think now the allies, I suspect Chirag Paswan spoke out, but I'm sure even Nitish Kumar would have had his discomfort, given that Bihar is going to an election next year and caste is a major issue there. So I think it's
Yeah.
it's the juncture more than anything else, and the fact that the government, I think it may have slipped their mind that there's a new political reality in town.
It may have slipped their mind that there's a new political reality in town. Sanjay Jha, then Gurcharan, and then Sandeep. Sanjay, go ahead. Sanjay, before you
Barkha,
go ahead, can I add a
yeah,
question? Can I add a
sure,
question?
sure.
Which is that I think it's fair to say that the Congress is being ideologically expedient here, because you were in a sense the architect of the lateral entry, right? That's the point that the BJP is making today. So yes, fair politics, everything is fair in love and politics, but let's not pretend this is about ideology. Go ahead, Sanjay Jha.
Yeah, Barkha, let me answer that question. But because in this panel you have three people who seem to be more sympathetic to the BJP and Mr. Modi's cause. Give me just 30 seconds
Empathetic to
extra.
lateral entry. Empathetic to lateral entry.
Yeah,
Not
no, but
necessarily that they've revealed their political leanings. Sandeep says those,
well,
but not the other
well,
two. I think Gurcharan is wanting to say something. Gurcharan, can we come out of this? I want to see what Gurcharan is saying. Can we come out of
I'll
this?
tell
Gurcharan,
you,
yeah,
Barkha,
Gurcharan, yeah,
my fear is
yeah.
that
Coming back to you, Sanjay, right after this.
with the atmosphere that's being created at this moment, when social justice is trumping everything, that bad idea that was being talked about very seriously during UPA 1, pushed by the communists particularly, was the idea of reservations in the private sector. That why can't we must go for social justice in the private sector? And frankly, I mean, that is not how China came up. And we have to
Yeah.
recognize that China became a middle class society by creating an industrial revolution. And there were a lot of people who were in favor at that time, because I was very active. I was horrified at the prospect of it. And there were studies done by CII, etc., to see how many Dalits, how many OBCs there were in the corporate
Okay.
sector. And I just fear, frankly, that, I mean, I'm just taking it out of the immediate moment, Barkha, of a mistake that the government has made because it has not properly sold this idea
I want
to
to,
a much
I want
more
to,
serious, much
yeah,
more
I want to go
serious
to,
fear.
sure. I want to allow Sanjay to complete his point, but since Sanjay, on a lighter note, you said that, oh, maybe they could get another prime minister through lateral entry. There's obviously a critic of the Congress, Saurabh Vishisht, in our audience stream, who says, honestly, Sanjay, you should be pro-lateral entry. And Mr. Rahul Gandhi also had a lateral entry to the upper echelons of the Congress party. Now, this is all political banter. You said that we have here three BJP-leaning people vis-a-vis you, who's a Congress supporter. Well, how I am reading their responses is Sandeep Ghosh is being quite critical of the Modi government, despite being a Modi fan. And the other two seem to believe in the philosophy of lateral entry, politics be damned. Now, please, the floor is yours. Sanjay Jha.
I mean, good luck to the people who are commenting, but I rather focus on what I believe is the truth.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
Mr. Das, with due respects to you, but I remember reading your observation actually on Mr. Modi and the BJP long time ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. Where you believe that economic growth needed to transcend certain disturbing issues of communal harmony, because eventually India would only grow if it developed economically. And I kind of very strongly disagree with that kind of a myopic view. So let me just put this on record that today, if you believe we are all very privileged people here, English speaking, and we can all use an Oxford or a Cambridge accent, but the truth of the matter is India needs social justice. I strongly object to this opinion that social justice trumps everything. I think the Constitution of India, Mr. Das, is so focused on social justice that it does believe that while everyone has political and economic and other rights, social justice is the cornerstone of a society that basically has too many inequities to deal with. And Barkha, let me just point out this, that ultimately Mr. Das gave an example of the Indian cricket team. Let me tell you one thing, Mr. Das, that ever since Indian cricket has actually broadened its bandwidth, the people who play for India in the cricket team or the IPL or the T20 or the ODI come from different parts of the country because they have had opportunities. It's no longer the Brahminical system, if I can use that analogy, which once upon a time Barkha had Bombay, which, as it was called then, winning all the Ranji Trophy matches,
Yeah.
and with Delhi and maybe Karnataka. So I think we
Okay.
need to be a lot more kind of realistic about that. I want to make 2 points because, I'm sure you'll come back to this later. In the UP government, the Allahabad High Court has struck down the hiring of 69,000 teachers. Barkha, you might be aware of this, where they felt that the reservation policy had been contravened. It, I
Hmm.
think, tells you largely the ideological mindset of this party. This party is headed towards a political Waterloo simply because it seems to be obsessed with one, crony capitalism on the economic side, and a very pro, or shall we say anti backward caste
So why
philosophy,
so
which is
why do you
ignoring
think Modi
85% of
so
India.
why do you think, and please answer it in one sentence because there are three people waiting to speak, why do you think the Prime Minister withdrew it then? If they're so defined by this mindset of Brahminical mindset, why do you think they withdrew this directive then, or this
Because I
opening?
think the basic message Mr. Modi has sent, and I'm hoping everyone who watches your program hears it out, especially those who have struggled from the communities which are in the backward schism of India's society, because there is a schism that divides the entire society. I believe they should know that Mr. Modi personally, or his government for sure, doesn't believe that they have the talent or the merit to serve India in its bureaucracy. And that is tragic,
Okay.
because if you don't
Okay.
give people an opportunity, you will never know. You're not even
Okay.
testing
Okay.
them. It's a
Okay.
fundamental flawed political thought.
Okay, let me actually just explain what Sanjay was referring to. This happened in 2020 and 2022, where the Allahabad High Court directed the state government to prepare a new list. And this is, of course, referring to the appointment of 69,000 assistant teachers in the state. But I'm not sure that it was directly linked to reservation, Sanjay. That is
It
your
is. It is.
extrapolation. Okay,
No, no,
okay,
it is an issue. It is an issue. It is the
okay.
principal issue, actually.
Okay, Gurcharan, briefly, and then Sandeep and Dheeraj. Gurcharan. We need to unmute Mr. Das, please. Can we unmute Mr. Das? Yeah, you're unmuted, sir. Go ahead. We can't
I'm
hear you, though.
delighted
Yeah, now we can.
that
Now we can.
we are all for social justice. And I'm delighted that people in the Indian cricket team come from all classes. But what I was against was reservations. If you made reservations mandatory for the Indian cricket team, they did not come up through reservations, Mr. Jha. That's the distinction we are making. And even the Constitution, you keep tom-tomming that it's about social justice. It made it very clear that there were reservations to be limited to the Dalits and the tribals, and it would be only for a limited amount of time. It did not give a license to make 100% reservations in the country, which is perhaps what you want. Anyway, I just feel here that I'd like, that this is really I mean, I am really very, very concerned that in we all want social reservations, but we also want to lift people out of poverty into the middle class.
Okay,
And
what
that was
concerns
my
you?
only
What
point.
concerns you? What concerns you? What concerns you in one line with the taking back of this order?
No, about taking back of this order is fine. I mean, they'll find, Dheeraj just suggested, you'll bring them in as consultants, etc. There are ways, we need experts, and
Yeah.
there's a way of bringing them in, and there's a huge gap in the expertise we
Okay.
require in the government than what we
But
have.
you believe that we are moving towards a very sort of, we are back in the mandal years,
Yes,
metaphorically. We're
with
moving
that
towards a
mindset.
caste. Got it. So
And
Sanjay,
I
you had
don't
one
want
line.
us to
Okay.
sacrifice. I don't want us to
Yes.
sacrifice merit, which is responsible also for
Okay.
lifting people
Okay,
out
Sandeep and
of
then
poverty
Dheeraj.
to
Sandeep and
prosperity.
Dheeraj. Sorry to speak over you, but Sandeep and Dheeraj, you've been very patient. So Sanjay, one line, please. One line, Sanjay
Okay.
Jha.
But I hope
Yeah.
you'll come back to me later. I have
Of
two
course I
very
will.
short points to make. Mr.
Yes.
Das earlier mentioned China and with a lot of glowing admiration. If you are batting for India becoming a dictatorial, authoritarian country, maybe that explains your love for the current regime. But that's not the way a democracy works,
Okay.
Mr. Das. And my second point, Barkha, let's not, there's too much of rhetoric here. Let's go by facts. Bihar caste survey tells you that only 7% of the people in the state are graduates, 1% are postgraduates, and 85% of the people are OBCs, scheduled caste, and the scheduled tribe. And the second data that should worry us all in terms of discrimination, 0.44% people have a four-wheeler and 3% have two-wheelers. This is the social and economic backwardness that happens. And this government cannot even do a caste census. What does it tell you?
Okay. Dheeraj and then Sandeep. Dheeraj.
Yeah, I mean, I just find this argument, completely politically expedient because, we've had reservations for SCs, STs from 1947, right? That's a good 77 years. We've had OBC reservations in government jobs since 1991, right? That's almost 33 years. If reservations in government jobs alone were going to give you social justice or uplift everyone, then Sanjay Jha wouldn't be talking about what's happening in Bihar, right? All of this should have been solved. If reservations in government jobs was the only panacea for all of our social justice. It's not. And in fact, it's going to take us backwards because what we need for social justice to uplift everyone is, as Gulshan said, we need better government, we need better policies, and that's going to come. I mean, they're already, as I said, the IAS and other services already have the reservation. 30 experts from the outside, one in each ministry or maybe two in each department, are not going to derail the cause of social justice, nor are even five in every ministry going to derail the cause of social justice. So I think this is a completely exaggerated argument that
Okay.
35 lateral entrants are going to derail social justice. I think social justice is about much more. It's about dignity, of course, but it's about raising incomes. It's about making India a middle income country, and it's not going to happen with reservations in government jobs or even reservations in government colleges. I'm sorry, if that was to happen, it would have happened by now.
I think it should be very clear, Sandeep, that this is politics. It is absolutely political. I think it's correct to say that the government proceeded as if it's business as usual, but it's got a rude reminder that politics has changed, right? It's got a political reality check that you've got to now listen to your allies. You should have consulted them before what probably was considered something routine. Now, the second thing that's obvious politically is that the opposition has clearly made social justice, caste dynamics, call it what you will, its plank against the BJP's Hindutva. And the BJP at this moment politically needs to find a new story because Hindutva hasn't gotten the returns to the degree that it hoped for in the 2024 elections, Sandeep.
I don't even know where to begin, Barkha. There are so many issues raised, and I totally agree with lots, at least with what Dheeraj and Mr. Das say. And also how you summarize it. Only one more dimension I'll add. Apart from the politics, I think in this particular case, there would have been also a pushback. The government would be worried today from the bureaucracy per se, because that is also one constituency which probably is showing some degree of unrest or disquiet, if I may to say so. So that is one part of it. And then Mr. Das, first of all, let me take 2 or 3 points quickly. What Mr. Das put a nail on said, when you're talking of cricket team, it's great. It's because small town people are playing. They've come through their own merit, not because somebody is from a small town or someone among them is from a backward class. And that is precisely the kind of syndrome which we'd like to, the Congress is used to, because, in cricket at one point in time, it was the Maharajas and the Rajas and those sort of people. It was a game of the, princes. And from there, it has become a game of the masses. Congress still remains a party of the princes. And there, hopefully, they should also have more merit-based thing to people to come up even without reservation. So that is the difference in context. There's a world of difference between 69,000 teachers being recruited and 45 people being recruited. The same example, if you were to go by reservation, then would that 93% of Bihar should be contributing to UPSC? But at the same time, the irony is Bihar today contributes about one of the maximum number of IAS and people in UPSC.
But Sandeep, the government could have just issued a statement saying this is about 45 jobs or this is about whatever. Like it didn't have to take it back, lock, stock, and barrel, right?
We started by saying so, Barkha, that this was a total miscalculation or a very handling, and for which the government, I think, will have to pay a political price or a political cost. There is no question about it. One last comment I will make in elaborating with the point Dheeraj is saying. Why Dheeraj? I think there is a difference between taking somebody as a director and somebody taking them in a joint secretary position. I think that's the problem they face. People coming in as consultants get totally waylaid by the bureaucracy because they can't push the files. They have got no authority to. So you may have great ideas which you suggest, and that doesn't go up. Well, contrary to if somebody was right, Monte Singh Alupati right at the top, he'll have a different set of clout. And somebody coming in as a consultant in the mid ranks, they don't do. That's why maybe the government looked at this direct recruit policy. And going back to taking people in the periphery, I think would be counterproductive. They won't achieve what they were doing. Overall, last comment, Barkha, what Mr. Das again said, what I am most worried about, this whole aim about reservations and, caste census and all the other freebies and everything that we are going into is, I think that is where we are going down a very, very dangerous path. And here Congress in everything is contradicting itself. Today somebody else floated what was the Arjun Sengupta committee's report on gig workers. What Rahul Gandhi is saying today is totally different. On caste census, what they said earlier and now there is totally different. And I think all this being done for competitive populism is really, that is the bigger danger. And not just, I'm not bothered about, despite being Mr. Modi's supporter, I'm not really bothered about whether BJP stays or not. But if it goes out on these contexts, I think we have a much bigger worry.
Okay, the mishandling is being called out. So Sanjay, I'm an equal opportunity offender. I read out comments critical of Rahul Gandhi. I'm reading out one critical of the government. There are mixed views that are coming in. Prasad says, let's face it, the government messed this up. Their 10-year-old brazenness still lingers on while they come to terms with the reality of 240. Right. And I think that is true, that they must have just thought this is just something routine. 45 vacancies directly sort of being recruited by the UPSC. And Sanjay, if you take off your Congress supporting hat for just one moment, I think it's fair to say 45 appointments isn't going to change the constitutional protection that's wrapped around affirmative action. And so there is polemics here. And that's politics. But you've got to acknowledge that it's just political polemics.
I will tell you why I don't agree with you. And I'm saying so. I belong, by the way, to the upper caste. And I will tell you something. I grew up in Bihar, where I've seen horrific caste politics. And I believe Barkha caste divisions in this country will continue because it is very easy for people of privilege, some of them on your panel, and I'm going to be very upfront about it, because people love to protect their privilege. People love the status quo. The world must change, but we must preserve our own bubbles that we like to live in. I want to make two quick points. Look at the contradiction that all three panelists have made. Why has Mr. Modi's government, by the way, as an analogy, asked for a 33% reservation for women? Because there was a need, understood by all, including this party, that you needed fair representation for women in parliament. We all know why Chirag Paswan and JDU is worried today, because there are elections in Bihar, and we know, Barkha, what happened in the Bihar elections in 2015, when Mr. Mohan Bhagwat, the ideological mentor of the BJP, made a certain observation on reservations. That is the mindset of the party at large. The last point is vital. Why are we suddenly finding, as Dheeraj Nair was correctly pointing out, that government jobs is not going to solve the problem? Why are we talking about them? Because there are no jobs. It's been an economic failure over the last 10 years. You have Marathas. I live in Maharashtra, the most developed state of India. I can say so with confidence. I'm very proud of being a Maharashtrian citizen for decades now. And Maharashtra has Marathas today looking around for reservation. That's going to be a hot political potato during this election. The Patidars, you remember, the Patels in Gujarat, the Jats in Haryana. There is a problem across the length and breadth of this country. So when people are forced to go to the brink, their only hope is some assurance of either an opportunity in educational institution of a government
Okay.
funded place
Let's
or a government job or a public sector job.
let me pick up this last point, Gurcharan Das. I interviewed Geeta Gopinath of the IMF day before yesterday or over the weekend, and she said that while India was going to be, she thought, third largest economy by 2027, India needed to create at least 60 million jobs, anywhere between 60 million to 148 million jobs for 2030, right? So I'm saying if you look at those numbers and you look at the challenge of unemployment or underemployment, you can possibly understand why at the intersection of caste and economic backwardness, there will be this kind of churning that we're seeing.
Absolutely. And that's what I was pointing to. And the reality is that the model, the India model from 1991 onwards, has been a model which has failed to create an industrial revolution. Every country that went from being poor to middle class created an industrial revolution. And that, I think, is the real. I began by saying that government jobs is not the answer for prosperity, and dignity will come when people have real jobs. You know, the unemployment numbers do not reflect the jobs crisis in the country, because people want, they don't want to be extra hands on the farm. They don't want to have an extra hand in the bazaar. They want proper jobs. And that will come. But the point I was trying to make is that now I think it is possible. The preconditions for creating that industrial revolution are far better today than they were in 1991. And
Okay.
therefore, I feel that I hope we don't get waylaid in this period, when we are only talking about reservations and social justice and giveaway. My worry is
Okay.
really that the opposition is doing us a disservice in this regard, that it's only concerned with dividing, but instead of growing the economy,
Okay.
instead of growing,
Okay.
getting jobs, all we are doing is talking about how we divide the people. So that is my real worry about
Okay.
the
Okay.
politics today.
I have a couple of minutes left. So Dheeraj, Sanjay, and Sandeep, very quickly. Dheeraj, quick
No,
last
so
word.
I would be very happy, if Sanjay Jha and Congress pin the government down on jobs and growth and how to that they're not doing enough. They should do more. No problem at all with that. I would actually support him totally if they were to put pressure on that. But as Guncharan said, by saying going back to caste and going back to this small little cake that we have of government employment or government colleges, and all you want to talk about is distributing this. Our numbers are growing. Government jobs will never keep pace with the number of jobs you need. You just said, Barkha, the number of jobs Geeta Gopinath said are required. Everybody says, 150 million odd jobs will be required. They are not going to
Yeah.
come from government. They're not going to come from reservations, right? So pin the government on jobs, on good jobs. Suggest constructive ways to grow the economy, to create labor-intensive industries, as Gurcharan alluded to, what the other emerging economies have done. I would be very happy if the discourse went in that direction. And the opposition went in that direction. But yeah, going back into caste and redistribution and grievances of the past, it's nothing to do with Modi or not. I mean, this is a small thing. Either way, whether they had recruited
Yeah.
35 or they won't recruit 45 is not going to change anything. But I think the discourse, the way it's heading, and it's not nothing to do with being pro-government. I think, as I said, if the opposition comes up with better ideas for labor-intensive industries, for more jobs, for faster growth, I'm sure it'll benefit
Okay.
the country. But I don't think going back into reservations and concentrating on government jobs is a way forward for India, especially if we want to be a prosperous country.
Sanjay, very quickly, and then Sandeep can close. Sanjay?
Barkha, I will just like to quickly giving data and expose the disingenuous arguments having been made by Mr. Das and Mr. Nair. 8 lakh crore plus tax subsidy given to the corporate sector in 2019 till now, to be close to 10 lakh crores actually. And the promise was they will create jobs. Where are the jobs? But I'm sure Mr. Das and Mr. Nair were very happy with the tax subsidy given. Where are the jobs? That's not industrial revolution, Mr. Das. And you will never criticize and say, take back the tax subsidy. Point number 2, India, Barkha, has a problem. There are people on your panel who will gloat over India's stock markets. But unfortunately, Wall Street and Main Street are two different things. This is a country reeling under unemployment. This is a country where
Okay.
poverty exists. By the way, 50% of Indians can't even afford to eat 3 meals in a day. But Mr. Das and Mr. Nair and Mr. Ghosh, not of the Kolkata fame, will still bat for free market fundamentals because they don't really care for 85% of India.
Well, Manmohan Singh also believed in those free market principles.
Yeah, I mean, Sanjay, Congress has ruled India for most of the time since independence.
No, I can tell you the Congress has always adhered to an inclusive economic growth model, which is based, by the way, on a mix of both being liberal
Okay.
as well as welfare expenditure.
All right, Sandeep, there is a flip side to this. You believe the BJP has botched up its handling, but there is also a danger that the opposition could maybe overplay this caste card. It also does alienate what Sanjay Jha would call privilege, but it could also alienate those who are not from communities that have access to reservation.
I will end only by saying, Barkha, BJP, in terms of whether you call it the new political reality or otherwise, they should focus now on 2 or 3 big ticket items of reforms, and which will really get both governance and the economy going, rather than focus on these minor distractions. It doesn't matter. They didn't have to introduce the 45-member bill or the walk bill or the broadcasting bill. Why create these distractions and get derailed? Whosoever you're disturbing, whether it's your own allies or handing out an agenda to the opposition on this, instead take 2 or 3 big ticket items which will have everybody's support, including your own allies who will be aligned to it. And also, BJP and all of us keep talking about external forces, something which will also keep them happy in terms of, none of them will object to reforms happening. Take 3 or 4 big items, look at, as Mr. Das, Dheeraj, and everybody says, which are more labor multiplier industries are more, rather than focus on this. I would tend to agree on capital intensive industry, which does not create multiplier effect in terms of employment. Look at those, get the economy going, get the governance going, let people see this government, whether it's 240 or 270, it is in control. Yeah. It is moving ahead purposefully. I think that will be a far better achievement than creating these, handing pins to the opposition to do the pin pricking and derail the confusion.
I think as students of politics, we can all agree with this last point that Sandeep Ghosh has made. Irrespective of where you stand politically, the government seems to be picking battles that it doesn't need to fight. And to that extent, what this story is really about is not about lateral entry. It's not about social justice necessarily, because that needs a wider debate. It is about the government maybe forgetting that it no longer is a government that is run by the BJP with a majority of its own. That's what I really see as a message emanating from it. And it continues to actually move legislatively in a way as if it were. So I think that's the big reality check. We leave it there. To Gurcharan Das, Sanjay Jha, Sandeep Ghosh, and Dheeraj Nair, thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you for watching. Take care.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.